Hello, it is September 20th, and today we are going to be reading from our first reading from our lectionary selection this week, which is Pentecost 18. And our first reading comes from Numbers, chapter 11, verses 4 through 6, then jumping to 10 through 16, and then to 24 through 29. The rabble among them had a strong craving, and the Israelites also wept again and said, "If only we had meat to eat! We remember the fish we used to eat in Egypt for nothing, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But now our strength is dried up, and there is nothing at all but this manna to look at." Moses heard the people weeping throughout their families, all at the entrances of their tents. Then the Lord became very angry, and Moses was displeased. So Moses said to the Lord, "Why have you treated your servant so badly? Why have I not found favor in your sight, that you lay the burden of all this people on me? Did I conceive all this people? Did I give birth to them, that you should say to me, 'Carry them in your bosom, as a nurse carries a sucking child, to the land that you promised on oath to their ancestors'? Where am I to get meat to give to all this people? For they come weeping to me and say, 'Give us meat to eat.' I am not able to carry all this people alone, for they are too heavy for me. If this is the way you are going to treat me, put me to death at once, if I have found favor in your sight, and do not let me see my misery." So the Lord said to Moses, "Gather for me 70 of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be the elders of the people and officers over them. Bring them to the tent of meeting, and have them take their place there with you." So Moses went out and told the people the words of the Lord, and he gathered 70 elders of the people and placed them all around the tent. Then the Lord came down in the cloud and spoke to him, and took some of the Spirit that was on him and put it on the 70 elders. And when the Spirit rested upon them, they prophesied, but they did not do so again. 2 men remained in the camp, one named Eldad and the other named Medad, and the Spirit rested on them. They were among those registered, but they had not gone out to the tent, and so they prophesied in the camp. And a young man ran and told Moses, "Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp." And Joshua, son of Nun, the assistant of Moses, one of his chosen men, said, "My lord Moses, stop them." But Moses said to him, "Are you jealous for my sake? Would that all the Lord's people were prophets, and that the Lord would put his Spirit on them." The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So here we have a story that is set in its own context, so much that you have to kind of remember where we are in the Numbers story to understand it. So at this point in Numbers, a book we don't read too often, but which is strongly related to Exodus and to Deuteronomy following it, Numbers is a book about the wilderness period. Moses and the people left Egypt. They left their bondage in slavery in Egypt. They left that behind in Exodus. And they are now in the wilderness, those 40 years of the people wandering before they can reach the promised land. And in the middle of that wilderness wandering, they have a lot of problems. And there are a lot of cases, a lot of episodes similar to this one, in which the harsh conditions that the people find themselves in engender complaints, and for some, even a longing for the slavery that they left behind. And so we come here to Numbers. This is already pretty late in the game, and by the time we get to Numbers 11, the rabble among them, and rabble is a word that only gets used here. It's a Hebrew word that only appears here in Scripture. It seems to mean, and this is why we use the English word rabble, the malcontents, the small group of people who just refuse to be happy. I'm sure you can envision some rabble in your own life, or some rabble that exists today. Had a strong craving, and their cravings drive the whole community into consternation, because they keep bringing up, "Oh, if only we were in Egypt, there was fish and melons and all the leeks, onions, and garlic you could eat. which actually, given how much I like garlic, great on everything, I understand it a little, just a little. But in this case, they are putting those foods of plenty higher than the value of their freedom. The manna that they're eating in the wilderness is the food of freedom, and sometimes it's a little bland. But they would rather have this food of slavery than the manna of freedom. And so this rabble is causing a consternation in the community, and Moses hears weeping through the tents. And Moses turns to God and says, "Why do you give me a group of people that are so hard to lead? Why do they not listen? Am I their mother?" And that's literally what he means when he says, "Did I give birth to them? Did I nurse them as infants? It feels like I have a pile of infants here, and I have to be the mother to each one of them." And in this case, Moses gets testy with God. Moses is mad. And so Moses, in his fist shaking, causes God to change tack. God says, "Okay, Moses, you feel like this is all on you. Everyone's coming to you with their problems. I'll help you out." And so God says, "Gather for me 70 of the elders of Israel. Give me the people who are the leaders that you know, the people who people respect, who they'll follow. Gather them together, and I'll put my spirit upon them, and they will prophesy. I will speak to them like I speak to you." And so Moses does this, and God does this for the elders of Israel. But the story doesn't stop there, because God also comes to two people that weren't there, Eldad and Medad, who don't appear much else in Scripture. But Eldad and Medad are those that are in the group, are in the community, but were not in that tent. But still they speak with wisdom. And so this story is not just a story about God providing wisdom or God providing leadership. It's a story about the fact that there is leadership that springs up outside of the official channels of faith. That God can speak through multiple sources in our community. That God lifts up those who speak with authority. And so I'm wearing my collar today for an unrelated reason, but I'm not the only one who can speak with authority on Scripture. I am me nor any other pastor or any other religious authority for that matter, because God speaks through who God chooses to speak through. God places authority where God will, and that's dangerous. It's dangerous to institutions that want to declare that we are the arbiters of authority, and anyone who speaks outside of us is wrong, is speaking against God. And here we have in Numbers, and our gospel will have a similar message. Here we have in Numbers an example of God placing authority out on those who are outside of the institution, outside of that chosen 70. And regardless of the crisis at hand, we are reminded that God gives authority to those whom God chooses. And so it is our job to test those things, to test whether they match what we know of God. Are they speaking with authority? And our tests for that are, is this speaking to the grace that Jesus has shown us? Is this speaking to the historic faith of the church? Is this speaking to the scriptures that we have in front of us, that the church has accepted as scriptural? And those are the tests that we have to do. And if those people pass those tests, then those people are speaking with authority. I have gone on for a very long time on a long passage, so I'm going to close here. Take a look at this passage from Numbers. It's fascinating stuff. See you later.